Good afternoon from the Torah Shorts. Today we're going to be looking at the topic, why Sabbath and a High Sabbath. Now this is a crucial issue which causes much of Christianity to have a lot of misunderstanding in Scripture, in their Scripture understanding. It is important to understand that Yahuwah never changed. Remember that. And it's also very important to understand the purpose of the Sabbath and the High Sabbath. If you understand that, you will understand so much more in Scripture. Now, to understand the Sabbath or the High Sabbath, it is really important also to know when the Sabbath starts and when the Sabbath ends, which gives us then a lot of answers of issues where the Christian do not understand. And you will see that I will use or look at two examples which causes them problems. Now, first of all, we're going to look at Genesis 1 verse 5 and Genesis 1 verse 8. And Elohim called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there came to be evening, and there came to be morning, one day. Now, it's important to note, Yahuwah says, the first thing, it came to be evening, then it came to be morning, day one. Verse 8, and Elohim called the expanse heavens, and there came to be evening, and there came to be morning, the second day. This is important to understand that when we rest on the Sabbath, it doesn't start on the seventh day when the light comes up or the sun comes up. It starts at sundown on the sixth day. Then the Sabbath starts and it completes on the seventh day at sundown. And that is why that is important to understand that. So every day in Scripture always is from sundown to sundown. When Yahuwah speaks of his Sabbath or High Sabbaths, it means it is his appointed time that he has with his children. That is the day that we will spend at his feet, learning his word, worshipping his mighty name, spending time with our family together with Yahuwah. A rest day. And he considers this a very, very important day. We read in Leviticus 23 verse 2. Speak to the children of Israel and say to them, the appointed times of Yahuwah, which you are to proclaim as set apart gatherings, my appointed times are these. And then in that chapter, Yahuwah first will mention the weekly Sabbath, and then he will discuss the High Sabbaths. So, verse 3, Yahuwah mentions the weekly Sabbath. 6 days work is done, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of rest, a set-apart gathering. You do no work. It is a Sabbath to Yahuwah in all your dwellings. So everybody must rest and keep the Sabbath. And that is the weekly Sabbath. Every seventh day, every Sabbath, we need to rest. Then Yahuwah continues with the rest of the chapter discussing all his high days, his scriptural feasts. They are very important because this is his redemption plan. And Yahuwah, we're just going to look at the first one, Leviticus 23 verse 4 and 5. These are the appointed times of Yahuwah, the set apart gatherings, which you are to proclaim at their appointed times. In the first new moon, on the 14th day of the new moon, between the evenings, is the Pesach to Yahuwah. Did you hear that? In the first new moon, on the 14th day of the new moon, between the evenings, from sundown to sundown, is the Pesach of Yahuwah. So, really important to understand. When the day starts, when the day finishes, Yahuwah has got two types of Sabbaths. He's got the weekly Sabbath, And then he's got the High Sabbath, the weekly Sabbath determined by the sun, and the High Sabbath determined by the moon, the times. Yahuwah tells us to keep the Torah, and that is for a reason, that if we keep Torah, we will remember to call him by his sacred name, we will remember to keep the Sabbath, and we will remember to keep the High Sabbaths. All that is part of his redemption plan, to save his children Israel. Now, what we will find is that Christianity do not understand these High Sabbaths. And we're going to look at two issues, which proves that they've got it wrong in their Bible and in their theology. So, the first one we're going to be looking at is that Christianity does not understand that every appointed time, every high day or every Sabbath day, Yahuwah gives the day before specified as a preparation day. It's a day we prepare, make our food, clean the house, so that the next day we can rest and we do not have to do any work. So that we can have unhindered time with Yahuwah, focus on him. The first one we're going to be looking at is Matthew 26 verse 17. We're going to read from the King James first. It says, "Now, the first day of the feast of unleavened bread, the disciples came to JC, saying unto him, Where wilt thou that we prepare for thee to eat the Passover?" Now, where would you have the disciples prepare to eat the Passover? If you read Leviticus, you will understand that no work is to be done on the Sabbath. The high day, the first day of unleavened bread, is a high Sabbath. In effect, the disciples go in the King James to Yahushua, asking them, where can we go and sin for you? Because working on that Sabbath, the high Sabbath, would be considered sin. It is impossible for this to be the case. How should it read? Well, let's look at it again. Matthew 26:17. "And on the day before the first day of unleavened bread, the taught ones came to Yahushua, saying to them, Where do you wish us to prepare for you to eat the Pesach?" Right? The day before the day of unleavened bread. Now, Yahushua and his disciples ate the Passover on the day of Passover, the night they ate the meal. That after that, the soldiers came, they took him away, and he was put on the stake the next day, still preparation day, because remember, from sundown to sundown. And then he had to come down from the stake, be buried before the high day of unleavened bread, because they could not bury him on that day either. It has to all happen before the high day of unleavened bread. So, Yahushua ate the meal with his disciples on preparation day, and he was put on the stake on preparation day. And this is confirmed in the following, John 19:31. "Therefore, since it was preparation day, that their bodies should not remain on the stake on the Sabbath, for that Sabbath was a high one." So that says it's not the weekly Sabbath, but the high Sabbath. "The Yehudim asked Pilate to have their legs broken and that they be taken away." And that is the evidence that Yahushua and his disciples, because he could not have eaten the meal on the first day of unleavened bread because he was already in the grave. So, Passover meal, put on the stake, buried, all on preparation day, and then they could get into the rest of the high Sabbath. That was the first example, the first problem. The second problem is for Christianity is that they celebrate Easter. Now, Easter is a pagan festival anyway, but they believe that JC was put on the stake on Preparation Day Friday, which is the day before the weekly Sabbath, and he rose on the first day. That's why you've got Good Friday, and then you've got the Sabbath, and then he rose on the Sunday. They cannot calculate 3 days, 3 nights from Good Friday to the first day. It is impossible. Now we read in Matthew 12:40, for as Jonah was 3 days and 3 nights, 3 days and 3 nights, not parts, in the stomach of the great fish, so shall the Son of Adam be 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth. Because Christianity do not understand the 2 different types of Sabbaths, they presume Good Friday was the preparation day and the weekly Sabbath was the Sabbath day. Yahuwah gives the days names. Beg your pardon. He gives his appointed times, or his high Sabbath, he gives names. The weekly Sabbath is the Sabbath, and then he gives the different appointed times determined by the moon, the high Sabbaths, he gives names. Like we read about the first day of unleavened bread being a high day. This helps us not to have this confusion. So, the preparation day was the day of the Passover. That was a Tuesday night when it started. With sundown on Tuesday, it started. They ate the Passover meal. The soldiers came, took Yahushua away. And on the next day, which is Wednesday, daytime, he was put on the stake. And he died and was taken down from the stake and buried. This all had to happen before the high day of unleavened bread. So let us calculate this then. On Wednesday night, when this high Sabbath started, is night 1. Thursday during the day is day 1. From Wednesday sundowns to Thursday sundown, 1 day, day 1. Thursday sundown to Friday sundown, day 2. Friday sundown to Saturday sundown, day 3. 3 days, 3 nights. And that is how we get to calculate the 3 days and 3 nights. The secret is, obey the word of Yahuwah, all of it, then you will understand. Shalom, till next time.